Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into Chapter 10 of our source material, all about the SDR Sales Agent, and specifically, the incredibly high-stakes challenge of designing one safely. If you've been following the AI space, you've probably noticed two completely competing realities. On one hand, you've got this blistering, almost unbelievable return on investment that AI promises, but on the flip side, you've got catastrophic legal and brand risks if these systems just go rogue. So today we're unpacking the architecture of safe speed. How exactly do you build a system that moves at the breakneck speed of artificial intelligence without driving your entire company right off a legal cliff?
Okay, let's dive right into this. 3.2 months. According to market and vendor benchmarks, that is the payback period for deploying an AI SDR agent. Just to put that into perspective for a second, a fully ramped human SDR takes roughly 8.7 months to hit that exact same payback period. Why the huge gap? Well, a human requires a long hiring process, onboarding, training. It takes time. An AI agent, it starts generating pipeline in literally a matter of days. The speed is absolutely incredible, and it's almost entirely driven by volume. But here's the catch. Volume is exactly what turns a single, tiny bad decision into an absolute disaster at scale.
And that brings us to a frankly terrifying failure mode. $53,088. That is the maximum penalty for a single violating email under US CAN spam regulations. Yes, one single email. Imagine an unleashed AI blasting out 10,000 non-compliant, unapproved emails over the weekend while you're sleeping. Suddenly, Monday morning rolls around and you're waking up to a literal legal nightmare. That's not just a bad quarter, that is a totally existential threat to a business. It completely proves why we can't just wire up a large language model to an email outbox and, hope for the best. Which perfectly tees up our core analogy for this explainer, the engine versus the brakes. In modern AI system design, your large language model, whether that's GPT-4, Claude, whatever, is just the engine. It is immensely powerful, it's fast, and it generates incredibly human-sounding text. But an engine is completely useless and honestly highly dangerous if you don't have a chassis, steering, and brakes. The system architecture we're exploring today, things like data pipelines, retrieval mechanisms, and compliance guardrails, those are your brakes and your steering wheel. They're what actually allow you to handle the massive horsepower of an LLM safely. These guardrails come together to form what we call the knowledge pipeline. This is fundamentally how the AI safely learns about an inbound lead. Say it's someone just downloaded a white paper from your website. The AI doesn't just guess who they are. It follows 4 meticulous steps: identity resolution, enriching through tools, storing with provenance, and retrieving for the task. This pipeline is the absolute backbone of a safe AI agent. Every single stage is a highly deliberate decision designed to keep the model strictly grounded in reality. Let's break down step 1, identity resolution. So an inbound lead comes in with some level of intent. Maybe it's a form fill or a demo request. But before the AI does anything else, it securely matches that inbound email and domain to an existing account in your CRM. This is absolutely critical. Think about it. If a lead uses a personal Gmail address, it might not map nicely to their corporate account. If we skip this step, we end up enriching duplicate records, creating total chaos in the CRM, and worst of all, we might end up sending conflicting outreach to the exact same person. No one wants that. Moving on to step 2, enrichment. This is where things get really interesting, because a bare email address just isn't enough to write a highly personalized sales pitch, right? So the agent uses specialized, pre-approved tools to reach out to external enrichment providers. It's pulling in 3 vital types of structured data here. You've got firmographic data, like company size and industry, contact data, like their job title and seniority, and intent data, like recent funding rounds or maybe a hiring spike. Suddenly you've painted a really complete picture of the prospect. Now this brings us to what might be the most crucial point in the entire pipeline, storing with provenance. When the agent pulls all that data in, it doesn't just dump it into some giant, messy text file. It tags every single signal with its exact source, the date it was pulled, and crucially, whether it's a verified fact or just a rumor. Why does this matter? Well, a blog post rumor about a company's upcoming funding round might be a great soft signal for a human to keep an eye on, but it is deeply unsafe for an AI to state as a hard fact in an email. Provenance is exactly what prevents the AI from treating internet gossip as undeniable truth. Which leads us perfectly into the final step of the knowledge pipeline, retrieval. When it's actually time for the AI to do a task, it doesn't just grab the entire CRM history and shove it into the prompt. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, it tightly retrieves only the specific, highly relevant signals required for the task at hand. If it's qualifying a lead, it pulls firmographic data. If it's drafting a highly personalized email, it pulls just one or two verified hooks. Keeping the context incredibly tight and strictly grounded is how we prevent the model from getting confused and just, well, hallucinating.
Okay, so how do we use all this tightly controlled data? We use it for explainable lead scoring. The AI isn't just relying on some mysterious black box gut feeling to decide if a lead is good. It logically grades the lead against your ideal customer profile, or ICP. The rubric breaks this down perfectly. Plus 25 points if the company size fits the floor. Plus 20 points if the prospect actually has buying power, like a VP of engineering. Plus 25 for a recent demo request. The AI is calculating the score based purely on hard, verifiable data.
And the final score drops the leads into clear, actionable buckets. 60 or above, that qualifies the lead for a human rep's time. 35 to 59, that goes straight into a nurture campaign. And anything below 35 is simply disqualified. But here's the absolute magic of this system design. Every single point scored carries a specific reason code tied directly back to a verified signal. Total transparency. So when a human sales rep or even a compliance auditor looks at a lead that the AI qualified, they can see exactly why it was qualified. That kind of transparency is exactly how you build real trust between human workers and AI agents.
Which brings us to arguably the most dangerous part of the SDR's job, drafting the actual outreach message. Here, the system must enforce a critical concept called citation faithfulness. This is the property of ensuring that every single claim the AI makes in an email strictly maps back to a verified permitted source signal. If the AI decides it wants to mention a recent Series C funding round to try and close a deal, it must point to the verified database entry that proves it. It can never, ever just fabricate a funding round because it thinks it sounds persuasive. To guarantee this doesn't happen, the system applies some really strict guardrails during the drafting phase. First, it explicitly restricts the model to ground its drafts only in verified signals. Second, it uses structured output. This is a total game changer. It forces the AI to output every personalized sentence paired directly with the actual evidence ID from the database. And third, it runs a rigorous grade before send check. Basically, a secondary piece of code verifies that every single claim actually has a matching ID. If the AI hallucinated a fact, it won't have an evidence ID, and the system instantly blocks the draft before a prospect ever sees it.
All of these technical safeguards lead up to an absolute golden rule for Chapter 10. And if you take away one thing today, make it this. The agent proposes, a human disposes. We are absolutely not building an autonomous outbound machine that just blasts emails into the ether on its own. What we're building is a highly governed superhuman assistant. The AI does the heavy lifting, the researching, the scoring, the drafting, but a human being always has their hand on the final send button.
But even humans make mistakes, right? Which is exactly why the system design has hard stops built in. A great example is the suppression gate. Imagine a really high-stakes scenario. Your AI drafts a brilliant, highly personalized email to a C-level executive in Europe. The human rep reads it, thinks it looks amazing, and hits approve. But wait, what if that executive previously opted out of your communications? Well, the suppression gate catches it. It checks an authoritative, unoverridable database of consent. If the contact is opted out, the system completely blocks the send, no matter what the human approved.
These gates are absolutely vital because today's regulatory environment is totally unforgiving. In the US, you've got CAN spam. In the EU and the UK, you've got GDPR, where honestly, just contacting a person is considered processing their personal data, and that requires a lawful basis. This system design doesn't just enforce these rules, it actually proves it followed them by generating immutable audit trails. So, if a European regulator ever knocks on your door asking why a specific person was emailed, you aren't just offering a guess. You're handing them a hard, cryptographically secure record of the verified signals, the explainable score, and the exact human approval log.
So let's pull all of this together and contrast the two approaches. On one hand, you have a dangerous autonomous agent. It sends on its own, it relies on unverified web rumors to try and sound smart, and it totally lacks any audit trail. Frankly, that is a ticking time bomb for your legal team. On the other hand, we have the safe SDR agent we've been architecting today. It drafts only, it relies solely on verified signals with strict citation faithfulness, it maintains immutable logs, and it mandates human approval. It is literally the difference between a reckless AI implementation and a meticulously governed enterprise system. Real quick before we wrap up, I want to share a super exciting optimization fact for the builders out there. Once your system is safe, you can actually make it incredibly efficient by utilizing something called prompt caching, which basically means caching the stable system instructions, your brand voice, and the tool schemas that the LLM uses for every single lead. You can slash your API costs by up to 90% and drop latency by 85%. Since an SDR agent uses those same core instructions repeatedly, this is a massive high-leverage way to scale your operations both safely and cheaply.
Which leaves us with this final, truly critical thought to ponder. If your AI system doesn't have a human circuit breaker, what happens when it writes a check your legal team has to cash? We are so eager to automate everything these days that we sometimes forget the massive cost of being wrong at scale. Architecting for safety, for provenance, and for human governance isn't slowing down your AI adoption. Actually, it's the very thing that makes your AI adoption possible in the real world. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building safely out there.